Yo, what's the deal? It's your man's. That's your boy, actually. It's your boy. I don't know what to say. It's your boy, Norbs, and I'm here again with a special guest, trainer, fighter, legend, Iceman, John Scully. What's up, brother?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I mean, I know you're on top of the world right now. Your fighter went, he went out and handled his business and won. Uh, to me, the biggest fight of the year in regards
Yeah,
to the just elites fighting elites, unified. First time a fighter's unified since Roy Jones at light heavyweight, right? If I'm, it's like,
right.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
175. Man, first and foremost, how does it feel, man? How does Otto feel? How do you feel? How does the camp feel?
Uh, I'm sure he feels good. We I haven't seen him since the day after the fight. We all flew back, but he actually stayed there for a while. I think he went to Mecca and he was taking care of some stuff over there. But obviously he was elated, and it was really cool. Like when we got back to the hotel, a lot of his friends, a couple of his friends that he grew up with, you
Yeah.
know, in Chechnya, they came over, and so everybody kind of took over the lobby of the hotel, and had a little celebration.
It's funny because every time I see an interview with him, he's just very even keel. It looks like nothing affects him.
Right.
I watched that interview and they asked him like, well, "What are you gonna do after you win the belt?" He was like, "I'm gonna go home."
Yeah.
Like,
He's definitely not going to the club. That's for
no,
sure.
and it's crazy because he seems just extremely like humble. He does like when you see him in the ring. First of all, I have a really good friend of mine. His name is Joe McCoy. He's a NFL great. This guy's faced 365-pound lineman body slamming him. And we're watching the fight, right? And we're watching Arthur, right? And shout out to Gerald. And he's like, bro, this guy's scary. Like he's legit. Like he's
Yeah.
scary, dude. Like, I mean, does the demeanor in the ring match outside? Because it's insane.
You know what's funny is I used to think that, I assumed that before I started working with him. And I think a lot of people, until relatively recently, I think a lot of people kind of saw him as like Ivan Drago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That type of personality and everything. But he's actually like, if you get to know him, he's funny, and
Yeah.
he's humorous. He's got a humorous side, and he can joke around, and I always tell people like one time we were watching the fight, and the fight was it was Caleb Plant and Canelo,
Yeah.
and so we were in camp at the time, and so coming into the gym Monday, I knew that he hadn't seen the fight. I knew he doesn't watch the fights,
Mhm.
and so me and Mark Ramsey after the gym, a lot of times we'll just stay there and just talk about boxing, right? And so Arthur goes in the back on that day, and he takes a shower, and he comes out. And so he sees us talking about boxing, and I go, "Hey, Arthur, you see the fight Saturday?" And I knew he didn't, but I was like, "You see the fight?" He goes, "No, no, 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 I don't talk boxing." And
Really?
he just he left. He just went home, left there, because he knew we were going to be there for like 40 minutes talking about fights and stuff. He didn't want to stay.
No, I mean, he looks. First of all, he looks extremely intimidating, right? Like even
Yeah,
watching the fight versus Bivol, right? And Bivol's a big guy. I
yeah,
remember watching him fight Canelo. You could tell the size difference, right?
right.
And even against Beterbiev, like he kind of, I feel like he's a little taller than Beterbiev. But watching the fight, every time Bivol would land a shot, right,
Yeah,
it would look like it would shrink Bivol. Like it would be like, dude, like this guy doesn't feel pain. Like, and
right,
I remember watching the aftermath of the fight, and Bivol was just kind of like flustered, like this guy just keeps moving forward. Nothing can stop him. And
right.
and even watching the fight, like I'm like, and I had it really close either way to me personally. I mean, I thought it was a really great fight. If you had it for Better Beef, if you had it for Bivol.
Right.
But the one consistent thing of the fight was Better Beef continuing to move forward and like literally peppering him, and nothing that Bivol would hit him with seemed to even affect him. Um,
Right. Right.
and I think that is so intimidating. And you're a fighter, and
Yeah.
and you've hit some guys as hard as possible.
Yeah.
And I know Bivol had how demeaning is that to see that, and you obviously at the fight. What did you notice in regards to his body language, Bivol, and all that?
Right. Well, I thought ultimately, I think one of the deciding factors was he moved too much. You know what I mean? Like, you can box and move, and it's good. It's great. You don't get hit, but there comes a point when it's a little more than just movement. Like, it's like escape. You know what I mean? And that counts for something. Like a judge is saying, all right, this guy's, he's really trying to avoid everything. So why is he trying to avoid everything? He must be feeling the power. He must be feeling the pressure. And, that gives Arthur more credit than it does Bivol. Because if your objective is to stay out of the way, any elite fighter with good mobility, if Roy Jones decided, I'm not going to get hit, Roy Jones would win every fight, 12-round decision, and he never would have got touched. It wouldn't have been exciting, but he wouldn't have got touched. And the difference was Roy, he lit some guys up. He's knockers. Now I don't criticize Bivol at all because I know who Arthur is. I know as well as anyone on earth. I'm there with him every day in the gym when we're in camp. I see what he's doing to people, and I see how they react. So I don't blame Bivol for choosing that strategy because that's the best strategy to win. To have a chance to win, you're not going to trade with Arthur. You're not going to wear Arthur down. You know what I mean? You're not going to just, all of a sudden Arthur's going to quit. You know what I mean? He's going to back up. So, he fought the best strategy that he could. It is what it is. He did what he could do to win.
It was interesting to hear Bivol's comments after the fight. And basically he was saying, he had made a comment about they compared Canelo and him. He said Canelo hits harder, but Canelo, he said, is putting everything in one shot. But he says everything that Arthur hits you with is insane. It's very strong. And it hurts. And as you're watching the fight and he's landing shots, you could see Bivol kind of like, oh man, like how hard does this guy actually hit?
Well, I'll say this much. Like Bivol said that, and I agree, because Canelo digs in, but he wasn't intimidated enough by Bivol, by Canelo to really get on his bike and take off. You know what I mean? So he never got to feel Arthur's true power because he never stuck around long enough to really get hit more than once. You know what I mean? Like if he stayed there with Arthur like he did with Canelo, he'd be really talking about something special that he encountered.
I mean, listen, man. Beterbiev, he's the boogeyman. He's literally the boogeyman. And watching him, I always like Beterbiev, but watching him against Bivol, who I believe is one of the best fighters in the world. I don't care what anybody says. He lost, whatever. Those two guys are insane. I can't wait to see if there's a rematch. But you can just tell, just physically, and this guy's 39 years old, which I think people tend to forget. He's 39. Right. You're not supposed to be. That's the thing. I mean, 39 years. Imagine if he was 31. I mean, it's absolutely insane how strong he just seems.
Well, think about this, and I've said this before, and the last fight just magnified this. He's the only guy I've ever really seen, the only one I can even think of. His best fights and his absolute biggest win came in his late 30s. He's improved in his late 30s. And the funny thing is, when he fought Callum
Smith
from England, I told him after that fight, I said, Arthur, in my opinion, that's the best you ever looked. Like you did things I hadn't seen you do before. You were just, everything was perfect, right? And that was a high level victory. But here you're talking about Dimitri Bivol, the guy, right? So all things considered, I mean, how many guys in history can you say have excelled at this age and literally the best they've been against a certain level of competition has been at 38 and 39 years of age. You're not gonna see that every day,
especially as dominant as he's been. I mean, usually, even like Floyd Mayweather to Roy Jones, the older they got, things just changed. What makes Arthur different? Like, in regards to how he could still be as successful as he is at that age.
Oh, there's no doubt his mentality, his faith in his religion, his adherence to the religion, to the mentality that gave him, and the way he lives. I mean, this guy, like I've said many times, I've never asked him, but I don't think I have to. I would say the chances that he's ever even been in a nightclub or a bar, probably 1% chance. Like, I
Really?
doubt ever been in a bar or a nightclub, and
Mhm.
I don't think he would ever go to one. So you're talking about a guy. You don't have to tell this guy, hey man, you got to run. Don't forget to run in the, when you're away. You're taking a couple months off training. Don't forget to run. Like, no, like he'll tell you, don't worry, I got it. So he's a guy. We've never had to tell him anything. Most fighters, you have to get on them about their weight. You
Mhm.
have to be constant. Some trainers will literally have their fighter get on a scale every Friday
Mm.
because they want to see what they weigh, because they don't believe them. They think they're like, and I did it. We lie, we take 10 pounds off what we
Mhm.
weigh. Arthur handles all that by himself. Like, we don't bother
Really?
him about his. He takes care of his weight. He's you can trust him. You can. I would say there's only a few fighters I've worked with where I could say, if we had to go out of town, like if Mark
Mhm.
Ramsey had to go out of town and I had to go with him, and we left for 3 weeks, and we told Arthur, all right, keep training, Arthur would be in better shape when we came back, and he'd be lighter when we came back. A lot of people, you can't say that. When the coach goes out of town, that's time to slack off. That's
Yeah.
subconsciously he's off. But Arthur, whether you're there or not, he's working 100%.
Now, money doesn't seem to be a motivating factor for Arthur. It just seems as if it's just added incentive. Now,
Right.
saying that, having said that, there's rumors of possibly, and I forgot the lady's name. She covers. She's a Spanish lady with glasses. She works for the Zone. I forgot her name. She said on the Boxing Voice, I think it was, that Canelo Alvarez is a possibility to fight Beterbiev, and not only that, that she believes that he would defeat Beterbiev. Um, is that something? And again, we all know Canelo's the cash cow. We all know it's a lot of money. Is that something that Beterbiev is interested in? And what do you feel about that?
Arthur's never ever mentioned Canelo's name. Like,
Mm.
like we never talked about it. I don't think I'll be honest. Like people, a couple people I've seen online, they say I'm lying. Right? I'm telling you, man. The only time he's seen Canelo fight is when we've sat him down to show him our opponent, Bivol, in his fight against
Oh,
Canelo.
that's Canelo. Okay.
Just looking at some stuff, you know what I mean? Arthur doesn't watch him. He doesn't care. He wanted to be undisputed. That's the one thing he talked about over the last few years, was undisputed. And in his mind, you're a champion, but you can't be the real champion unless you have all the
All the
belts.
belts. Yeah.
So he's done that. I think at this point, whatever they bring him, the management, and I think he's just going to go with whatever they think. And but I don't think he ever really thought about Canelo, because Canelo got beat by Bivol. So in his mind, he beat Bivol. So what does he need to beat Canelo for? He already beat Bivol.
I mean, granted, Bivol did beat Canelo, right?
Right.
But I think legacy-wise, we all know where Canelo is. People on this, like Canelo, I mean, he's about to headline in Japan. There's
Right.
rumors of him in Wembley. I mean, just the amount of people that are going to just see it. Is that
Oh yeah.
not something enticing for him? Because, listen, Beterbiev is, I think I have him a top 5 pound for pound. He's like 3 around there. Might be even closer to 1, right? You there, John? I know you broke up. Okay, you there. But with a win against someone like Canelo, he may be number 1 now at that point.
Right.
Do you feel like that can motivate him to fight Canelo? Or
Well, I think if they really explain it to him and say, listen, like, this fight is going to bring eyes upon you, all at once, that have never seen you before. Like, this is going to be amazing. It's a huge fight legacy wise. I'm sure. I don't think it's going to take a lot to convince him. You know what I mean? I would, he's not a dumb guy by any stretch of the imagination. We explained to him the level of the fight. But right now I think he's really enjoying, being undisputed. I think that was his ultimate goal, I think. But I would say a rematch with Bivol would make the most sense, and then Canelo. I would say that. But the only thing I think, if people, when they see Arthur and Canelo next to each other, they're going to realize how small Canelo actually is. Like, he's not a big guy. He's not a big guy. Arthur fought 201 as an amateur heavyweight. Arthur wasn't a light heavy. He was a 201 as an amateur. So he has the frame, and he was successful at that weight. He won world championship at that weight in amateurs, and so he's successful at that weight. He can carry the weight and the power and all of that. I think there's a reason why Canelo, when he moved up to light heavyweight 2 previous times, I think there's a reason he didn't choose Arthur. And part of it probably was he wasn't the biggest, global name at the time, but also is because his power and his strength and his size. Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, listen, I'm a huge Canelo fan. He's my favorite fighter. Yeah. I don't want to see him fight Beterbiev. I'm scared. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
right. Well, that's the thing. Here's what I always said. If they don't fight, I don't blame Canelo. Like, this guy's big. He's a big guy. And Canelo used to be what, 147, I think. I saw Canelo
147 to 154. Yeah.
I saw him fight. It's a crazy thing. He was on a show. I was in the dressing room. This was back around 2006 or 7. Outside of Los Angeles, out in the desert there. They had the Pachanga or one of those places. Yeah. And he was in the dressing room, and he stood out to me because he looked like an Irish kid. I thought he was Irish, but he was Mexican. He was fighting Larry Mosley, who at the time I knew, because Larry had been a top amateur, and I thought Larry was going to be the favorite. I thought Larry was going to beat the kid from Mexico. It turns out that was Canelo Alvarez. So he was 147, 150 back then. Yeah. So I wouldn't blame him if he said, look, Arthur's too big. He's a big light heavy. He's a huge. It's just too much. I wouldn't blame him for that. It'd be realistic.
No, absolutely. I mean, I just feel like Bivol, and it sucks in boxing that beating a Bivol or fighting a Beterbiev, because they're in the division and the lights and glamour aren't there. Like, I believe that should have been a 2 million buy pay-per-view. That's how great these two individuals were talent-wise. Right. And I feel like Arthur may never get that credit because of that. Because he didn't fight the big names. Similar to, we have Roy Jones or whatever, but he never had his, and he was popular, but he never had that equal. Beterbiev had the equal with Bivol, in a sense, in that division, and unified. And I just want to see this guy get everything that he should get. The way people should talk about him. Because,
well, you know what the problem is? You know why he's not? Think about this. Like, really think about this.
Yeah.
If Arthur was a guy who went on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and talked crazy trash and said, I'm going to destroy everybody. And if he called out guys by name and he had pictures of them and held them up and punched the picture, and crumpled up the picture and threw it on the ground, people would be talking about, he'd be a household name. He would be the Terminator. He would be the bully, right? It's not him. It's not, Eddie Hearn said before the fight, he tried to make a big thing. Like, he said Arthur was, what did he use the term? Not brash, but you might know. Like, he said he was cocky or something like that, like aloof, whatever he said, because he wasn't talking big at the press conferences. And I'm like, man, that's not him. That's not him. He's not a big talker. Arthur would disgrace himself and his family and his religion if he was to be there talking crazy and pushing the opponent. He wouldn't demean himself. You can give him 100 million. he's not that guy. He's not going to do that. He's not going to demean his family, his wife, his kids watching him. He's not going to have his kids watching him act a fool to try to draw pay-per-view buys. It's just not him.
It's funny you mentioned that because a couple fighters actually came out and took shots at him. One was because of our interview that we had, and we mentioned Gervonta Davis. I mean, he called me all types of bitches. I don't know. I don't even know.
It's immature. I mean, look, Gervonta's a good fighter. Obviously, he can't be mad because I said he wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame now. That's ridiculous. And believe me, I'm not the only. Thousands of people think it. It's way bigger names than me in the boxing game think it. What's he gonna go around and beat everybody up because they don't? Could just that's immature. I mean, he's a grown man. He's got to step it up. Like that's it's kind of ridiculous. I think he got caught in the moment and the reaction, and I don't think he realized what it really looks like. But like, could you imagine Sugar Ray Leonard? If I was on here and Sugar Ray Leonard was fighting and I said I didn't think Ray, do you think Ray would talk trash about Arthur? It would make no sense. Like it's kind of weird.
My thing with this situation was it was respectful. We was just the only reason I asked the question was
we weren't being negative. I wasn't being negative. It wasn't like look, I've seen fighters trash guys. Oh, he sucks. I mean, for me to say he's not in the Hall of Fame is not disrespectful at all. There's 1,000 guys who don't belong in the Hall of Fame. Some of them whom are already in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he won't be. I'm saying right now, today, October 2024, today, I just don't think so. Like good fighter, but it takes to me. And look at my stand. And maybe he doesn't understand. My Hall of Fame standards are legitimate. Mine aren't the ones in Canastota. Because clearly those are not high-level criteria to get in. I'm talking Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson, Kid Gavilan, Muhammad Ali. I'm talking that level.
No, and to be honest with you, like even when I said it and when I asked the question, it was more so based on accomplishments. I'm big on accomplishments, and I asked the question because the rumor of him fighting Lamont Roach was coming out. And a lot of people weren't excited. And to this day, they're not excited. And there's a lot of controversy about now people. I mean, I've heard rumors about the date not being official because that fight's not going to sell. So they might put it on a Beterbiev card. So that's the only reason I asked the question. Right. And to me, and just being honest, he's not a Hall of Famer to me. And I don't even have him on my pound for pound list. And that's simply because there's other guys to me in the pound for pound list, top 10, that have just done more, that have just fought greater competition. And I just want to see Gervonta be great. I would have loved to have seen him fight Teofimo Lopez. I love Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko, Devin Haney when he was there. And I just feel like, personally, if he would have did that, then we have a conversation,
Right.
And that's just pretty much how I felt. And, it was no disrespect towards Gervonta, but that's pretty much
it can't be where if you don't praise the guy to the highest level, that it's disrespectful. I mean, come on. Like, I have an opinion. You can't be mad because everybody doesn't think you're Superman. I say he's a good fighter. Obviously, he's a good fighter.
No, very talented.
World today, but I'm just talking about the Sugar Ray Leonards, the Roy Jones, Tommy Hearns. The Hall of Fame. That's what I'm talking about.
No, absolutely. And people do say the truth hurts. That's what I'm gonna say. Now, also another fighter brought up. He took a shot at. I only brought him because of the shot. Because Otto Beterbiev did kind of respond. He stuck with his team. He posted a picture, very classy. He said, maybe I forgot how he said, maybe I'm not that great of a fighter, but something about a great team. And he posted all of you guys, which was really classy. And I thought that was really dope.
I didn't even know about that.
Otto posted a picture of all of you guys. And basically, I thought, and he just basically said, maybe I'm something about I'm not a good fighter, but it takes a great team to whatever, which was really dope.
Arthur is not going to. He wouldn't look at Arthur. Is the type of guy, he takes his religion very seriously. He would consider it demeaning, to get it type of back and forth like that. Like I said, that's just not him. He's not the Twitter warrior, the trash talk guy. Like it, he wouldn't do that to himself. And I respect Arthur for that, 100%.
No, absolutely. Now another fighter did bring him up.
Yeah,
Edgar Berlanga, who just recently fought against
That dude, crazy.
Oh, Scully, we gotta talk about that. Because he fought Canelo. We see what happened.
Yeah.
And he's living in the moment. He's very
Yeah.
happy he didn't get knocked out. But he came out and stated that not only would he stand in front of Arthur Beterbiev, that he would knock him out, and that he had no head movement and no IQ. Now, I thought that was absolutely insane. I don't know if you heard the comments, but if you did, please.
I mean, it's just well, that's what I mean. That's an example of what I'm saying. Like, people go on there to say things they may not even believe it, but they say it just to get us talking about it. You know what I mean? Like, wow, you hear what he said? It was outrageous. It was outlandish what he said. And I guess the more outrageous it is, the more we want to talk about it. But that's just crazy. Like at this point, again, Arthur has no idea who Edgar Berlanga is. Like, Arthur has no clue who he is. If he, that's not being disrespectful. I'm just saying, if he walked up to Arthur and shook his hand, like, Arthur would think he was a boxing fan. He wouldn't have a clue who he is, and he wouldn't care. But Edgar is not big enough. He's a super middle, a solid super middle. He's not big enough. He
says he walks around at 205. He showed up to fights almost at 205 pounds. This is what he said. There was
it did nothing against Canelo. Like, it did, Canelo's a 5'7" guy, and that didn't do anything. If he can't overpower Canelo, we're for, don't even contemplate Arthur Beterbiev. Like, that's just, I'm not, and again, let me clarify. I'm not being disrespectful towards Edgar at all. Like, Edgar's a puncher, and he's a tough kid and all that kind of stuff. But no, like, Arthur, he's everything he is. Arthur is that and more. Arthur's bigger, stronger, bigger puncher, better IQ, just the whole thing. But I get it. This is what I was saying earlier in the broadcast. Like, this is what we need to do. Like, Eddie Hearn would love that Berlanga did that. You know what I mean? He would love that. That he got us talking about it, and he said these things, and he's But Arthur just wouldn't say nonsense just to say. It would be like him saying, I'll go up and I'll knock Fury out, 2-3 rounds, if they dare fight me. Like, Arthur wouldn't. He's not gonna do that.
No, when I seen the comments, and I know people in his camp and stuff like that, I was just like, dude, are you serious? Like,
yeah,
that's. I mean, and again, I watched. I don't know if you've seen the Canelo fight.
Yeah,
it was. I don't think it was a good performance. That's just me personally. I feel like he fought the fight just to not get knocked out. I don't feel like he really went after it. I don't think he really went to win in that fight. And Beterbiev is he's not normal. I mean, I would like to see the fight. I'm not gonna lie, because I want to see him put up a shut up. It's a bad man on the other side, Beterbiev. So, it is what it is. So moving forward, we were talking about his options. You said most likely it's going to be possibly a Bivol rematch. I think Bivol activated a rematch. I don't know if there's a rematch clause or whatnot. What are the times, or is it possible to happen within the next 6 months?
I mean, if it does, I would assume that would happen. I don't know. You also probably heard the IBF. They want Arthur to fight some guy.
Yes, I did see that.
Like 14 fights. And I mean, in no disrespect, but I never heard of the guy. That doesn't mean he's not good. I'm just saying I never heard of the guy in my life. And, I mean, like, they were going to strip Arthur. They didn't even give him 3 days to enjoy the belts, and they're already threatening to strip him. I found out about it on Thursday after the fight. So
how did it happen?
5 days after the fight, they were already saying he's got to fight this guy from Germany. I think he's from Germany. He's got to fight this guy from Germany within 3 months or whatever it is, or he's got to sign to fight him. And I'm like, man, like, wait a week at least. I mean, come on.
But he just got unified. Like, how does that even happen?
Right.
I've seen guys not fight their mandatory for years. For years.
4 days. It was 4 days after. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, and I've seen guys hold on to the belt and not fight their mandatories for forever.
A year and a half. I think Charlo, it was like 2 years or something.
Yeah, he didn't even defend it. Even with Canelo and Benavidez, I think Benavidez is like the mandatory for like 3 years.
Right,
And then, so, I mean, that's crazy. 3 days? Like, and I seen it. I was like, dude, I thought the Bivol rematch was on the table. Like,
right.
I never even heard of dude before.
Yeah, and that's why I always say the people who are in charge of boxing, this is my quote, the people who are in charge of boxing are not the people who love boxing. They're not boxing people. They're not boxing fans. They're business people trying to make more money for their organization. And, it makes me where, if you understand, like I love boxing, but I hate boxing. You know what I mean? I love the sport. I love the gym. I love the fighters. I love being around the guys. I love being in training camp. I love fight night. I love the aftermath. I do not like the business of boxing. I don't like the overall sport of boxing, when it comes to stripping. And, we've got 19 guys now who've won 3 world titles in their career. When back in the day, there was, in the first 100 years of boxing, it was like 5. We've had 20 in the last 30 years win 3 world titles. Some of them have won 4. We have world champions. The guys are 6-time world champion. Back in the day, if you won 2 world titles, you were Superman. Now they got 6 world titles. I mean, I hate the game of boxing, what it's become.
I hate the made up titles. I don't even get it. Like, I'm like, dude, like there's so many belts that don't even make sense.
Everybody, a guy said to me about a year ago, and it was he meant it to be funny, but it made so much sense. He said, man, if you're a fighter today and you don't have a belt, you must really suck. He said, because if you don't have some kind of belt around your way, you can win, a regular title, a silver title, a regional title, an internet, something. If you haven't managed to grab one of them, and there's 400 of them available, you know what I mean? You must really not be that good.
And that's what I hate about boxing too, because if you're a priority to a promotional company, you're going to skip the line for a belt. They'll make one up. And I've seen a bunch of fights where they make someone a champion. I'm like, dude, like, I don't even know what belt he has.
I don't even know what the letters mean. Like I literally have to write the letters down and try to figure out what the W and what the B stands for.
Yeah.
Is it like, federation, union, council, association? Which one are we, and they had one, remember a few years ago, they had the WBB, the World Boxing Board. I mean, come on. They literally, imagine being at the dining room table and you're like, all right, we got council, we got association. Which one? What can we use? Universe. What do we use? And coalition. Just this weird. It's just weird. It's ridiculous.
That's my thing with boxing too, and I feel like it just stinks, man. Like I hate watching it because of that. Like I want to see the best fights happen. That's why what Arthur and Dimitri did was so great.
Right.
When they're both pretty much at their primes, they're fighting, and instead of the whole long delay, like the Boots and Crawford, we all want to see that fight. Right. For whatever reason, it's not happening. And I love Bud Crawford. I think he's great, but we all want to see that fight. Right. We want to see Canelo and Benavidez. There's so many fights that are held up because of the politics and stuff like that, and it stinks.
And you know what? It makes you appreciate Sugar Ray Leonard when you realize in the span of from November 1979 until September of 81, he fought Roberto Duran twice. He fought Tommy Hearns. He fought which other fight was it? Benitez. I mean, just those 4 guys. Plus, he had a couple other fights in between. But in that span of time, he fought Duran twice, Benitez, and Hearns. Benitez was undefeated. Duran had 1 loss and like 62 victories, and Hearns was undefeated. And these guys, they fight. They would. Who today would do that? In the last few years, the only ones I can think of is like Bernard Hopkins, Oscar De La Hoya. They would have made those fights. But guys today, there's plenty of big fights to be made, and they're not. Yeah, they're not Sugar. There's very few Sugar Ray Leonards in this world.
No, there is, and I feel like a lot of it's become that mentality of
Yeah.
protecting your right?
Yeah. Right. Floyd is great. Like Floyd's a great fighter and undefeated and all that, but he rubbed off on all these guys.
Yeah.
And they all want to follow his blueprint and they want to make the most money possible. And at some point, it's like it's a business, right? And we all know that. So they're hammering it home. It's a business. We got to maximize our earning potential. We got to make the money, but sometimes you got to say, listen, man, I want to really be great. Like I want 100 years from now, I want them to remember me, and we're going to remember Roberto Duran. He had all these losses. Duran had like 16 losses by the end of his career. We're going to remember Duran forever. We're going to remember Sugar Ray Leonard forever. You know what I mean? It's just, they did it. They stepped up, and that's all that at the end of it all, that's all we really care about. Like when he, think about it, Tommy Hearns got stopped by Sugar Ray Leonard. He got stopped. TKO, right? Nobody cares about that. When they meet him, they want to talk about that fight, how awesome it was and how great it was.
Yeah.
Half the people forget that he even lost it. They don't even realize he lost the fight. They're just talking about he's the guy that fought Sugar Ray in that unbelievable war, and they went back and forth, and it was right down to the wire. He was undefeated, and it's just a different mentality. And we're every decade, if you look at the 40s and the 50s and 60s and right up until today, the fighters are becoming more business-like. They're part-time rappers and they're entrepreneurs and they've got a clothing line, and all this stuff. And it's just weird because back in the day, like Hagler. I mean, Hagler. I grew up in New England, so I know all the stories about Marvin, and he was that guy, man. Like he didn't care about any of that. He just wanted you dead. And that's how he was going to make money, was by killing you. So, and he would fight. He would have fought anybody on earth to get.
That's how I feel about Manny Pacquiao. I think Manny Pacquiao was probably the last.
Yeah, look at Manny's. Yeah, for sure. All those guys. Yeah.
I mean, there's one guy that I really think he's looking for all the big fights, but for some strange reason can't get him, and I think that's Teofimo Lopez. He wants to fight Bud. He wants to fight Gervonta. He wants to fight Boots, and can't get a fight. I mean, how do you feel about Teofimo? This is my last question. I know you got to go. About him not getting what he deserves right now.
I mean, I really like him. His fight with Loma. He's obviously, he's really good and all of that. But the problem with guys like him and most of them, they're not fighting unless they fight the biggest fights, right? James Toney had 75 fights or whatever, because he fought non-title fights like the old time, like Ezra Charles and Joe Louis and those guys did, Ray Robinson. They fought non-title fights in between their title fights just to keep busy and to keep sharp for less money, right? Mm-hmm. They don't do that now. The guys today only want the biggest fights for the biggest money, or they're not fighting. So when is the last time Teofimo even fought? I have no idea. And in the last 3 years, how many times he fought? 2, 3?
Yeah,
he's in the prime of his life. He's supposed to fight 6 times a year.
6 times.
Yes. Look at James Toney's record. James was fighting 5 times. Listen to this. You may not know this. Your listeners may not know this. I'm going to tell you what happened. I'm going to tell you an amazing stat. This is the mentality of James Toney. There's nobody today that has this mentality. When he fought Michael Nunn, people forget, Michael Nunn was superstar. Michael Nunn was pound for pound #1 at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
James was nobody. James was not a big name in the game at all when he fought Michael Nunn. He fights Michael Nunn. He's losing the fight going into the 11th, I think it was. He's behind on the scorecards. Comes up with a late round miracle knockout. Knocks out Michael Nunn. You know what he did next? He fought Reggie Johnson 6 weeks later.
Jesus.
He fought him the following month. Whatever. He fought him immediately. That means he had to go right back to training camp. He scored the victory of a lifetime. Beating Michael Nunn at that time was gigantic. It was unbelievable. He turns around, fights Reggie Johnson 6 weeks later. Now, you tell me anyone on earth today who's going to do that, who has that mentality. Nobody.
Yeah, you're right.
Nobody. Right. And that's what we're missing. We're missing James Toney's way of thinking.
That is incredible, man. The game is definitely different.
Yeah.
I
challenge anyone. Look it up. Look it up on BoxRec. Look at the dates. Look at the date he fought Michael Nunn. Look at the date he fought Michael Nunn, and then look at the date his next fight was.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane, man. Skull, man, I definitely appreciate you coming on. Definitely, I want to do more with you. I mean, you're like literally an encyclopedia of boxing, so it's awesome. I look forward to hearing the next announcements, what Arthur's going to do. Hopefully, it's the rematch with Bivol, you know.
Yes.
But on that note, man, I want to thank you for coming on, and I appreciate you guys. You guys have a great team. Continue to be successful. And, I'm going to hit you up, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, buddy. I'll be good. All right, you too. Bye-bye.
That's my guy, John Iceman Scully. And this is the Norbes Podcast. We are out.